The Houston Texans hired Rams passing game coordinator and tight end coach Nick Caley as their new offensive coordinator. Was he the right choice? And how likely is he to get the Texans offense moving in the right direction again? Plus, what was the worst part of the Luka Dončić trade for the Dallas Mavericks? Because holy hell, there's a lot of bad coming out of that absolutely crazy trade that dropped late on Saturday night. I'm Paul Gallant, and this is the Gallant Says podcast.
A radio show host in Seattle called Paul Gallant.
Paul Gallant's wondering the same things a lot of people wonder.
You are definitely living in the hindsight world today, Paul.
Do you feel there's been a consistent theme with the interceptions?
I think every interception really has a different story.
I was just kind of curious what Paul gets to say.
You kidding me? Paul Gallant, what the hell is wrong with you?
Hello and welcome aboard the Gallant Says podcast live on YouTube at Paul Gallant, on Twitch at Gallant Says, on Twitter /X at Gallant Says, on Instagram at Sports Gallant, and on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports. You can catch it Monday through Friday around 4 p.m. Paul, it's 5 p.m. Central Time. Oh, yeah, I know. Or occasionally after major Houston sporting events. It's also available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, on Spotify. If you want to cut me off, super chat me on YouTube or Twitch, which is where you get the best live experience of this show. And guess what? I'll play this sound effect.
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
And I will get to your comment right away. I'll eventually get to your comments, but if you want me to address it right away, that's how you do it. So, a couple hours ago, Tom Pelissero of the NFL Network put this one out on Twitter. The Texans are hiring Nick Caley as their offensive coordinator, sources tell me. And Ian Rappaport, a longtime Patriots assistant, Caley spent the past 2 seasons with the Rams, another branch of the Shanahan-McVay tree headed to Houston. In case you didn't know this already, Caley also was someone who went to John Carroll University, the same school that Nick Caserio went to. And Nick Caserio and he obviously are connected from their time at the New England Patriots. So, how do we feel about this? Here's how I feel about it. I wanted Chip Kelly, and I think that a large portion of the fan base would have preferred a name and somebody who's actually called plays before. That's not to say that I think Caley will do poorly. He just hasn't done it before. Chip Kelly got $6 million from the Las Vegas Raiders over the weekend. That's a ton of money. That's more than all but 12 head coaches. I don't know if the Texans were ever going to go and give Chip Kelly anything close to that. Maybe they would have considered $3 million or something along those lines, more than he was getting at Ohio State. 300% increase from what he was making at Ohio State. I don't think they would have gone that far. I say that because the NFL, there's a lot of collusion that goes on. And while there's no salary cap for head coaches, I'd imagine that NFL owners do not want to pay a coordinator way more than most coaches because it sets a precedent. But there's one organization that would do that, and that's the Las Vegas Raiders. And I say that because just historically, Al Davis, Mark Davis's father, used to thumb his nose and flip off the NFL whenever he could. So for the Raiders, with a little extra cash that they have through Tom Brady's trust fund friend, they're able to give a deal like this out to an offensive coordinator. How will it work? We'll see. But as far as for the Houston Texans to bring in Nick Caley, I'm not excited about it. That doesn't mean that it's not going to be a good hire. It also doesn't mean that it's not going to be a bad hire. Peter Schrager put this one out there as well. Houston Texans just got a great one in Nick Caley. Rising star, a Sean McVay favorite, chose the Houston job over other opportunities, which tells you how he feels about the head coach, the quarterback, and the franchise. I imagine that the options for Caley were probably pretty I would imagine there were a few. And I know that the New York Jets were interested in him, and he said no. I'm curious as to what other organizations might have been into him, but he is now leaving the Sean McVay tree. How does Sean McVay feel about him? Sean McVay actually weighed in on the possibility of Caley taking another gig a couple of days ago. Here's what he had to say about his now former passing game coordinator and tight end coach.
I've spoken to him about it. I know that's a possibility. Haven't gotten anything as it relates to a request, but yeah, I did speak with Nick yesterday. It was his birthday and his daughter Caroline's birthday yesterday, and so he was on his way to taking Chick-fil-A to her at school, and we were talking about that. And he's a special coach. He's done a great job for us. I love everything this guy's about, Jordan. I think it's really cool when these guys are offered opportunities to be able to elevate themselves, and you want to make sure that you evaluate all options as what that looks like. And so that is something that's a possibility, but there hasn't been anything official as it relates to a request.
Got it.
It is official now, though. He is the offensive coordinator of the Houston Texans. No details, as far as I can tell, about the actual contract itself. I know, though, that last offseason, while he was being choosy, he was looking for around $3 million. I also know that he's interviewed with the Houston Texans before for this very same gig. Why did he get it this time as opposed to last time? I'd assume that DeMeco Ryans maybe had a little bit more pull as far as who the Texans hire as their offensive coordinator, because he had just come in and maybe ownership looked at Nick Caserio with a bit of a side eye, just given the way things had gone over the last couple of seasons. So DeMeco got the final say there. But I'm sure that Caserio brought up, hey, we've interviewed him before. You've spoken with him before, I'd assume, in that interview, because DeMeco had already been hired. Hey, let's figure out if you can make this thing work. So now we'll see what happens. I am cautiously optimistic. Am I excited? No. But that's not what it is about. I do think for a lot of Texans fans out there, though, given how disappointing this year was, I think you wanted to have your socks blown off. And Chip Kelly, I think, would have done that a little bit more. Is that important? No. But given how this fan base operates, and at least how whenever we talk about them on the radio is received, which generally seems to be with annoyance and indifference, especially after the way that this season closed out, it's one of those things where I felt like going into this offseason, you want to give your team, but more importantly, your fan base, a feeling of hope, optimism. It's kind of tough to feel that at this moment in time. Here's a video, and I saw this via Texans commenter, of Nick Caley at FAU back in 2014 talking about his coaching style.
Depth. Reggie. Got him. Nice job.
You know, I'm a high energy coach. I'm passionate on the field. I like to move and coach on the run and teach fundamentals first. And I would say I'm a fundamentals first coach all the way, and I do it with a great amount of energy and enthusiasm. I love to teach, and that's my style of coaching.
Hey, seven.
That was when he was the secondary coach at FAU. So he's got a little bit of a defensive background, but he's mostly got that offensive background. And you would think, just given the way that CJ Stroud seems to worship Matt Stafford and Sean McVay, that CJ was pretty excited about this. Was CJ's input a part of this decision? I don't know. It might have been. If you've paid attention to CJ over the past couple of years, you'd know that he is a big fan of Matt Stafford. Here he is talking about Stafford on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast. I believe this was in June. Here is the quarterback of the Houston Texans with Tank Dell on $1 Million Worth of Game.
Stafford, hey, Stafford another one, bro.
He might be up there with Brady and them, bro.
No, come on.
No,
bro.
that's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah,
that's
that was
crazy.
crazy.
It is crazy, CJ. How dare you? That's blasphemy in the eyes of some.
Let me go back. Hey, because look, look, dog, hold on. Before you do all this extra shit, I'm a student of the game. Stafford a dog.
He
bro.
is a dog.
No, you don't understand, bro. You saying that. That's all I watch. I don't watch nobody else. I watch Mahomes at times because Mahomes does some stuff that like you can't coach. Stafford, dog, he will beat you with the same thing every time. All that no lick stuff, I got that from bruh. Like, literally, that's one of my big, like, I'm a fan of his, like.
And
when I
he's
go to
a
LA,
great quarterback.
I be trying to find, bro.
But
Like,
it's
we
a
got the same
level to
trainers. I be
greatness.
trying to, like, go to where they working out and just watch.
That's all I'm
He
saying.
elite, dog.
Like Charles Barkley.
Hold on. If you give Matthew Stafford a chance like Aaron Rodgers, I guarantee he might have had more rings, for sure. I think Matthew Stafford.
Matthew Stafford had more rings than Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he could have another ring probably.
I'd say he had like 3, 4.
He might. It's possible.
Bro.
He good.
When you
But what
talk
I'm
about
saying is
tough
it's
as
levels
nails,
of greatness.
He is tough as nails, as CJ said at the end there. That's the thing I respect the most about Matt Stafford. But the people who do pay attention to the NFL, they all have a great deal of respect for him. CJ has a ton. I mean, to say that if he was in the same situation as Aaron Rodgers, he might have won more, that was a ballsy take going into this year. But you saw this season where Stafford once again banged up with a Cooper Kupp that wasn't the same guy that he was. And, I mean, they came pretty close to upsetting the Los Angeles Rams in the divisional round of the playoffs. You know, they were marching down the field. Puka Nacua didn't seem to like the outdoors. So perhaps a little concerning on that front for the Rams. But Stroud likes Sean McVay. Stroud likes Matthew Stafford. Here is Stroud talking about Stafford at the Texans joint practices that they had with the Los Angeles Rams this offseason.
From him is just his toughness. Like, man, he's tough as nails. Like, I remember watching the mic'd up with him. He broke his shoulder or something weird like that. And he finished the drive, and you know his shoulder was down there falling out of place. And you know, I just respect that, you know, because it's not easy. And you know, just how he manipulates guys with his eyes, his drops, his arm angles. Man, I've been a fan of Matt Stafford for a long time, and I wasn't trying to be like a fanboy today, but I asked him a lot of questions. Just try to just learn, and he was really honest with me and wasn't like mean, which I appreciate. So definitely a huge fan of his, one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, and to like share a field with him was dope.
Favorite quarterbacks of all time. That is actually surprising too. I don't know if it's as surprising as the amount of basketball players who look at Paul George as the best player or one of the best players in the NBA, their favorite player in the NBA. But Stroud's got a lot of respect for Matt Stafford, and I'd imagine as someone who has watched a lot of Matt Stafford, that he's got a very big appreciation for that Sean McVay offense. Here's Stroud talking about that Sean McVay offense after that very same practice, joint practice with the Rams at training camp a couple of months ago.
I'm a super fan of his, the type of scheme he runs, the way he calls it, you know, the way he uses guys in motion and just a whole bunch of different things. And he just seems like a good guy. And, you know, he just had some tips and pointers, also showed me a lot of love, you know, which I appreciate. But, you know, I appreciate him more than he knows, just watching film, not even knowing him, just like getting better from the stuff that he does in that offense along with Matt and those guys. So, you know, it's definitely just an honor just to know that he knows me, you know, which is a dope.
Clearly, CJ Stroud likes the McVay offense. I think what you got to ask yourself is, Nick Caley going to have an offense that's essentially the Sean McVay offense to a T, or is it going to be his own interpretation of it? Is he going to be able to do the things that McVay does so well, which is adjusting to things in game? And is he going to be able to spam, if you will, the same play from different looks over and over again until a defense figures out a way to stop it? We'll see. Everyone's trying to recreate Sean McVay across the league, and it's very difficult to do that when you're basically taking away a middle management employee who's young, who's never called plays before, who's never been a coordinator before. And that's where I'm not excited about the move. That's not to say that he's going to fail or succeed. I truly do not know. I think anyone who's making predictions is kind of crazy on this front. And I also think, it's just foolish to make predictions about what these guys do. Sure, there were a couple of interviews that this guy's done, 2023, this year. Has he learned a lot from that last interview to this interview? Did he know all the right things to say to D'Amico Ryans because he probably has a relationship with Nick Caserio off the field? Was there a little coordination on that front? These are all questions I can't answer. But it's fair to speculate about, I think. More from C.J. Stroud talking about that Sean McVay offense. Here he is. I forget what game this was after this past season, talking about how some of the offensive struggles could perhaps be fixed by picking up the tempo on offense.
Getting out the huddle, breaking the huddle the right way. All the elite teams I ever watched growing up, Patriots, I watched Stafford a lot with the Rams. I can go so on and so forth. Man, you watch it on TV as a kid, you see how quick they break from the huddle when they get on the line of scrimmage, and the defense feels that. And now you get an opportunity to read the defense a little more, and I think that's where we can take the next level.
So there you go. That's C.J. Stroud talking about this offense, getting out of the huddle more quickly. These are real fundamental things. My buddy Jody on the Super Chat.
Paul, stop talking.
Listen. This question. What do you think this means for Gerard Johnson, considering Nick is another young coach and a first-time offensive coordinator? Well, I'd keep an eye on what Gerard Johnson does after the Super Bowl. I don't know if the Eagles are strongly considering him as a replacement or if they're even thinking about a replacement, but it does seem like Eagles offensive coordinator Kellen Moore is the front runner to be head coach of the New Orleans Saints. So when he takes that job, which does sound like a foregone conclusion at this point, what does that mean for some of the other gigs that are available? I know that the Jets wanted Nick Caley, but he turned them down, and that because they weren't able to get Caley, they hired Scott Turner as their passing game coordinator and Tanner Engstrand as their offensive coordinator. Do you think that the Eagles would perhaps bring in Gerard Johnson? Because I think they interviewed him. Let me see. Yeah, they interviewed him last January. So, say Kellen Moore ends up being the head coach of the Saints, I feel like they might give him a phone call. But it does feel like this is writing on the wall that upward mobility, it's not happening here for Gerard, which is a shame. I like Gerard. Joseph, I know you played with him. We'll see. We'll see what happens here. I'm looking at him, and I like that there's some continuity from last year. Clearly, the Texans didn't think that Gerard Johnson was the reason that the offense took a step back. I think that they're really putting a lot on Bobby Slowick and the offensive line coach, Chris Strouser. I know that Cole Popovich is somebody that they are intending to keep. I think they're still working on the actual details of Popovich's contract to bring him back. His had expired, but he was, from what I understand, one of the people behind the scenes that was pushing back on Bobby Slowick. Wasn't the biggest fan. So there you go. More comments here. Willow20 says, I'm fine with the new offensive coordinator. Sneakers Most Wanted says, sup, Paul, Lego. Hope that they got this right. Skults on X says, boring search, good hire. Solid hire, I will say. Good, bad, tough to determine. We base so much of hires these days off of press conference performances, and that's probably not exactly the best way to go about it. You know, I know a lot of people are crushing Liam Cohen with the Jaguars. I don't know that that's necessarily going to be a disaster just because he was awkward while introduced. On YouTube, Rick Hagwood says, Zach Cromer needs to come in as our offensive line coach. He knows the scheme. And Case Keenum needs to replace Gerard Johnson. I don't know, man. I don't know about that. I mean, Keenum's in the quarterback room, but Gerard's been the coach. Maybe that's what happens. Say Gerard Johnson takes a job elsewhere. Case Keenum ends up being that quarterback coach. Tormick Johnson asks, Paul, did you hear the news that Will Smith slapped Chris Rock at the Oscars 2 years ago? Was that 3 years ago? I know it was a while ago. Keep my wife's name out your motherfucking mouth. Right? Is that what happened? I know that the Grammys were last night. I don't know much about music. So that's fun. What else is going on? Ooh, on Instagram, Simi Hendricks comments at Sports Gallant. Hey, Paul, I'm in prison, and I listen to you every day, and starting today because I have access to a phone. Shout me out if you can. Shout out to you. Is that legal? Hide that thing, man. I am not worth getting busted over. I wish you well in there. He says he's a huge Texans fan. Knows his shit. Shout out to you. But I would focus on hiding the phone and making sure no one comes over and takes that thing for you. But I don't know how that works in prison. Phone policies and such. Other news I wanted to touch on today's show. What happened on Saturday? What was the worst part of the Luka Dončić trade? Saturday night, I'm at T-Bones. For those who don't know, T-Bones is a fantastic karaoke spot. And Sean Shannon says, I'm in prison and Mr. Hendricks' phone is really loud. Facebook access in prison. Sean, I didn't know you were in jail. Damn, that's a bummer. He did send me the winky face emoji here. Big Al Cervantes asks about the press conference for Nick Caley. When is it? I have yet to get an email about that. So I'd imagine they're going to set something up the next couple of days. Perhaps they'll do it after the Super Bowl because this is usually a week where everyone's all over the place. But there you go, guys. There you go. Anyway. Huh. Sorry, guys. Dealing with some technical difficulties. I think I retweeted something from the wrong account on my phone. Willow20 says, did Timmy from South Park negotiate the Luka trade? Timmy from South Park? Let's just go through all the messiness of this trade, and I know people want to talk about it. Simply trading Luka Dončić is the craziest thing of all. This is a top 3 player in the NBA. It's not possible for you to get in return anything that's as good. Even if you like Anthony Davis, who is 31, 32 years old and has played in, 65% of the possible games he could over the last 4 seasons. At one point, this would have been looked at as a decent trade for Dallas, but it would have been probably 2 years ago after Doncic made it to the Western Conference Finals and that Davis was 29. Even then, with what we've seen from him to open up his career, no matter how the Mavericks might have felt about his conditioning, to trade him and not get any draft picks and not get anyone young in return, I mean, I really, for the life of me, do not understand this. Even worse, I don't like the way that they slandered him on the way out. And sure, they might have had some reservations about his conditioning and all that jazz, but to air that publicly or to tell people that privately, insane. And from what I understand, that is essentially what they did. There's an article that came out on ESPN, and in said article, per, I think, Tim McMahon and Ramona Shelburne, if you read this article, I'm sorry, I'm looking for the specific spot in this. Nico Harrison, who used to work with Rob Pelinka, going all the way back to 2003 when they were working with Kobe Bryant, he only called Pelinka, and I'm sure that he had shared some of his own reservations in the past about Luka Dončić and his conditioning. I guess he had gotten up to 270 pounds while dealing with the calf injury that's kept him out for a while. When you share that kind of information with a close acquaintance, but then actually want to negotiate with that guy, that's how reservations could theoretically take you from getting multiple firsts and Dalton Connect and just getting Anthony Davis and a draft pick in 2029. And I find it crazy that the conditioning issues for Dončić were such an issue, just given what he's done over the last couple of years. His ideal weight, I guess, is 245. When he got the MRI in his calf in late January, he was 255. So I don't know if he ballooned like 20 pounds in the last 2 weeks, because some people were saying that he's 270 pounds. I don't know about that. But the fact that the Mavericks put that out there is fucking crazy. Who's going to want to go play for them now? When you put something like that out into the ether, how do you think that this is going to play for you going forward? Forget the fact that you just got rid of a top 3 player and somebody that you really did stumble into drafting him 3rd overall. It's insane that Dončić fell to them. Hell, wasn't it later than 3rd? He was, okay, it was 3rd overall, and he got traded from the Hawks to the Mavericks. Insane. Just absolutely crazy. If you're the Hawks, you took Trae Young. If you're the Grizzlies, I mean, at least Jaren Jackson's a good player, but the Suns took DeAndre Ayton, Marvin Bagley went 2nd overall. And like, Dončić was so good overseas. And I think we've gotten to the point now where international basketball players have proven they belong at this level. And that's it. That's all they got for this guy. And the fact that he was drafted 3rd overall, like, people just seem to keep underestimating the guy. And now I'm wondering, going forward, what do you do if you're the Mavericks? Like, are you about to leave town? He put together that post. I don't know how many people saw his farewell post that he wrote. Dear Dallas, 7 years ago, I came here as a teenager to pursue my dream of playing basketball at the highest level. I thought I'd spend my career here, and I wanted so badly to bring you a championship. The love and support you all have given me is more than I ever could have dreamed of. For a young kid from Slovenia, coming to the U.S. for the first time, you made North Texas feel like home. In good times and bad, from injuries to the NBA Finals, your support never changed. Thank you for not only sharing my joy in our best moments, but also lifting me up when I needed it most. To all the organizations I've worked with throughout the Dallas community, thank you for letting me contribute to your important work and join you in bringing light to those who need it. As I start the next part of my basketball journey, I am leaving a city that will always feel like a home away from home. Dallas is a special place, and Mavs fans are special fans. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. Luka, 77. I mean, they moved on from this guy who had shown no indication that he wanted to leave. And all they did saying goodbye was leave a message, Nico Harrison sent him a text. That's it. With this trade that came together through conversations that he had exclusively with Rob Pelinka and not with any other team. And he never gave an indication that he wanted out based off of all the reporting. Nico even admitted to that, Nico Harrison, the Mavericks GM, in a press conference. Luka had just bought a $15 million house. And per Chandler Parsons, he cried when he found out the Mavericks traded him. $15 million, that's not going to be easy to move, right? He was eligible to sign a 5-year, $345 million extension next offseason, which would have been this coming offseason, which would have been the highest in league history. And he anticipated signing the deal. Look at this crazy-ass part of the report, though. The Mavericks were as scared that he wouldn't sign this deal as they were scared that he would sign the deal. What? The actual quote, team sources say they were as afraid of Dončić signing the deal as they were of him not. Nico Harrison said, I feel like we got out in front of what could have been a tumultuous summer. What the fuck is now? This is a tumultuous rest of your time with the Mavericks. You have to win a title right away. And you aren't doing that with Anthony Davis as the best player on your team. You can't trust him to be ready to go for a full season. And just for comparison's sake, like, think about what the Nets turned Kevin Durant into. This is a post from Eric Slater. The Nets turned 34-year-old Kevin Durant into Cam Johnson, Zaire Williams, a 2023 Phoenix first-round pick, a 2025 Phoenix first-round pick, a 2025 New York Knicks first-round pick, a 2025 Milwaukee Bucks first-round pick, a 2027 Phoenix first-round pick, a 2027 Knicks first-round pick, a 2028 Phoenix first-round swap, a 2028 Knicks first-round swap, a 2029 Phoenix first-round pick, a 2029 Knicks first-round pick, a 2031 Knicks first-round pick, a 2025 Brooklyn second, a 2028 Milwaukee second, a 2029 Milwaukee second, and a 2030 Dallas second. Meanwhile, the Mavericks turned Luka Dončić into Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a 2029 first-round pick. Even Rudy fucking Gobert, who is barely playable in the playoffs, even Rudy Gobert was traded for 4 first-round picks. What are we doing? And you should have started a bidding war with another team, but they just talked to the Lakers and Rob Pelinka, and they traded for a guy that the Lakers apparently were going to let walk. So this thing just keeps on getting worse and worse all the time. To quote Lando Calrissian. The Mavericks used to have an owner who had no comment on the trade, saying it's not my team anymore, that once said, if I had to choose between my wife and keeping Luka on the Mavs, catch me at my lawyer's office prepping for a divorce. By the way, making matters worse for the Mavericks, the Rockets own the rights to either Dallas or Phoenix's first-round pick, in addition to being able to swap their own first-round pick for the less favorable of either Dallas or Phoenix's first-round picks. So this trade, which makes the Mavericks worse on a day where the Spurs got better, also makes the Rockets slightly better, at least in terms of draft positioning going forward. This is the same guy, Nico Harrison, who botched a 2013 presentation with Nike to Steph Curry, where according to Harrison, he may have called Steph Seth. The presentation used was made for Kevin Durant. This, along with not offering Steph Curry a signature shoe, caused the superstar to switch from Nike and sign with Under Armour. Unbelievable. This guy's running the Mavericks. And I get it. Like, he did a good job putting together a team that made the finals. But think about where the Mavericks are now. They had Jalen Brunson and Luka Dončić in the 2018 draft. They're both gone. And they had posted an all-time backfiring tweet before the game even began. Did anyone see this? And clearly no one in the Mavericks knew this because they wouldn't have posted it otherwise. But here's a video from X of Luka Dončić on, per the caption, "Happy National Texas Day, y'all." Getting out of his car, wearing cowboy boots. I think he's got a cowboy hat in there. That's got to be a big... Okay, it looks small there now that he gets out. I mean, that's a big guy in that car. He's wearing all black cowboy stuff. I don't know if he wore that Saturday night or if that's from in the past. But what are we doing here? Like, this guy clearly embraced being a part of Texas, and they just shipped him off for absolutely dick. So what's the worst part of that deal? I don't know. I am curious if LeBron knew. Dave McMenamin, who's a Lakers reporter for ESPN, said LeBron learned of the Davis-Dončić trade after the Knicks game when it broke up while he was out to dinner with his family. James was surprised by the news, is processing it, and had no idea it was in the works. Yeah, I wouldn't have had an idea it's in the works either. Not. If you're LeBron James, you had to have known about it, right? But apparently not, and he's really been defiant. There was a post that was put out there. This is from LeBron. LeBron had grown frustrated with Anthony Davis, tweeted out CBS Sports. I think that was from Ben Ryder. And LeBron reposted it saying, "You a fucking lie," with a Pinocchio emoji, clown emoji. Do we really buy that LeBron didn't know about this? That Clutch Sports wasn't aware of this? Honestly, just given the way that that report came out, they actually might have kept it quiet. And it never got wind to LeBron until he did find out about it. But I even got a push notification. It felt like they're really trying to make it seem like LeBron wants everyone to know, I did not orchestrate this trade. LeBron James intends to stay with Lakers beyond Thursday's trade deadline. That's from ESPN NBA reporter Chris Haynes. That's crazy that there was a push notification for that. Couple of comments. Tora McJohnson says, I would have traded Jalen Green and some picks for Luka. Is he secretly another Deshaun Watson, he wonders aloud? Ime would have gotten the best out of him, and the Mavs are being fat phobic here. Perhaps it was all that. Toro also says LeBron was probably frustrated with Anthony Davis last year. Yeah, I could buy that. More. James Clancy comments on YouTube at Paul Gallant. The tinfoil hat definitely came out after this one. Something's off about it. Yeah. It feels that way. Or it's just the stupidest fucking trade that we've ever seen. And it's good for basketball. I mean, this has actually stolen the spotlight away from the beginning of Super Bowl week between a fan base in the Philadelphia Eagles, who is very passionate and very national, and, of course, the two-time defending champion Kansas City Chiefs, who, of course, have Taylor Swift dating Travis Kelce as part of that whole show. One last thing I wanted to touch on. There's been a lot of protests across the country over the last couple of days due to the mass deportations that ICE has been conducting. And I feel like the strategy for these protests needs work. I'm not really sure what a protest ever accomplishes unless there's some sort of violence that happens at said protest. I hate to say it like that, but I've never felt that a bunch of people standing outside of a building ever create change. All you might do is annoy some people. Is annoying people enough to get them to see things the way that you do? Especially today. is pissing them off going to help you out? And I say that because I've seen all sorts of protest strategies that seem to just be pissing off the people that I'm sure that they're trying to raise awareness to. This is a video from California. Here are a bunch of people waving Mexican flags and blocking a highway, which seemingly was allowed by police officers, as you can see right here. Everyone's holding a Mexican flag. And I would just say to those people, is that going to help people look at you and say, like, oh, yeah, these people want to be here. These people belong here. I understand being a little bit terrified about, like, hey, what's going to happen with ICE, whether you're illegal or you're someone who knows someone who's illegal. If you are here illegally, I mean, best of luck, I guess. But stuff like this, I don't think this is getting you any allies. I really don't. I think this is ultimately just going to make you piss off people that already are against you, as opposed to getting people on your side. Especially when you see stuff like this. This is from National City in California. If you watch along on YouTube at Paul Gallant or on Twitch at Gallant Says. It's getting pretty rowdy out there. I mean, look, you got people dancing on top of a car here. Is that person who was in the car actually a protester? I don't know. Lots of honking going on. Lots of Mexican flags out there. Some people are wearing masks. People are doing burnouts. And I'm just wondering if this is a strategy that's actually going to get people on your side. I wouldn't think so. Willow20 says, I'm fine with protesting, but you cannot block the freeways. That's how I feel. And I feel like blocking the freeways is exactly the kind of thing that's just going to make people really fucking angry at you. Like, how does that help? Like, are people going to be like, you know what? I was late to work today. Thank God. Thank God. Now I realize that I can't have my country breaking up families. I can't have people getting deported back to Mexico or some of these other countries. It's just a bizarre strategy. And it's been happening everywhere. I mean, it's not just here in California. We even saw it over the Montrose bridges in Houston last night. Here is a video that was taken from one of those bridges. I forget which one, but like you see people here, they've got Mexican flags. I think that's a Uruguayan flag as well. I mean, people are trying to raise awareness, I guess, and say like, hey, we're here together. We want to live here. But I don't know, waving the flag of a country that you don't want to live in anymore. I don't know. It doesn't really seem like you want to be here. No? Isn't it kind of weird? It's like mixed messaging. You want to be here, but you also are supportive of your people. So you want the people who are also here to remain here? What if they got here illegally and you got here legally? Doesn't piss you off at all? I don't know. Just questions that I'm asking. Anyway, guys, hope you guys enjoyed today's edition of the Gallant Says podcast. This thing tries to start its best, its hardest, at 4 o'clock on YouTube at Paul Gallant, on Twitch at Gallant Says. That's where the best experience is. That's where you can interrupt the show with the super chat button.
Paul, stop talking. Listen.
Ask me a question. I'll answer it right away. But you can also watch it on Twitter, on Instagram at Sports Gallant, and on Facebook at Paul Gallant Sports, Monday through Friday around 4 p.m. CT. Willow says, if you want to send a message, go protest at the courts. That seems like it makes sense. Or protest outside a building that actually has, I don't know, an impact on shit going down. It's also available after the fact wherever you get your podcasts, on Apple, Spotify as well. If you haven't already, please like this video on YouTube and subscribe to my channel, or do the same on Twitch. Also do the same. 5-star rating, please, and a nice little review on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. So long, farewell. Have yourselves a wonderful rest of your Monday.